Hello and welcome to today's video, which is where we're going to be looking at selling a buy-to-let. So if you own a buy-to-let property and you're looking at selling it, there's some specific things to consider, and that's what we're going to cover in today's video. So first of all, it's worth considering why might you want to sell a buy-to-let. So let's say you've got an existing property, you've rented it out for a little bit, and it's been performing okay up until now. There are a number of reasons why you might wish to sell that property, from a change of pace. Maybe you're looking to retire or downsize your existing portfolio, and you're wanting to maybe sell a whole portfolio or individual properties, but fundamentally selling is the right solution for you, rather than continuing that portfolio with maybe a management company. If you're actively self-managing at the moment, it's just simply a change of pace. You may be looking at changing your current setup. Second option is two reasons why we see investors looking at sell portfolios is because they're adjusting their portfolio. So things change. Sometimes you move house, sometimes you change your work or your career, and sometimes you have owned properties or inherited properties that might not now be a fit for you for a whole host of reasons. So let's take an example. If you're currently living in, say, Manchester, but you used to work in London, you might have an existing property in London that you rented out for a period of time whilst you were deciding what to do, and selling that property now might be the right solution. And it could be tenanted, and you want to sell it as an existing buy-to-let. So it's a genuine reason for looking to kind of sell that property. And it's simply just a case of adjusting and tuning your portfolio so it's a better fit and solution for you today. Now, there is another reason why we see investors look to sell buy-to-let properties from their portfolio, and that's because maybe they require work. And there's been lots of changes recently around legislation, certain changes in the market around EPCs, and that requires properties to be at a certain standard in order for them to be rented out. And sometimes landlords, investors just don't want to go through that process. Maybe they don't have the budget. Maybe they don't have the intent to hold that property a long period of time. It doesn't make sense for them to invest heavily into that property today. Maybe it makes more sense for them to look at selling that property and for another investor to come on board and take it on for the longer term. So there are genuine reasons why investors do look to sell existing buy-to-let properties. It's not always about the tenant profile. Sometimes people think that an existing buy-to-let might have a problem tenant in there. It's very rarely the case from what we've seen, and there's lots of things that you can do to make sure you're covered there during the purchase process anyway. So don't worry about too much in terms of the specifics of, is this property going to be a suitable property just because it's tenanted? Focus 100% on the fundamentals. So just to give kind of an overview really as to why somebody might wish to sell a buy-to-let and why you might wish to sell your buy-to-let. The next thing to consider in terms of selling is, how do you go about selling it? Do you look at selling via your local estate agent? Do you consider maybe selling via an auction, or are there other routes out there? And there's typically 3 to 4 different options that we see investors having when it comes to kind of selling their properties. One which you may not have considered. If you own a buy-to-let at the moment, it's well worth, if you're comfortable, speaking with your existing tenants, because they could be a perfect purchaser. Maybe they want to stay in that home. Maybe they do have ambitions to be homeowners, and it could be a great solution for you. Now, I fully appreciate that that's not a fit for everybody. Sometimes there are situations where you don't want to upset your tenant. You don't want them to let them know maybe that you're thinking of selling the property, and you want to sell it as simple as possible, ideally with the tenant still in place and the tenancy still intact. So selling and approaching your existing tenant as a potential purchaser absolutely may not be a solution, but it's worth considering. Second option is the typical high street estate agency route. Lots of reasons to use a local high street estate agent. They have lots of local knowledge. And one of the downsides though, when you're selling a buy-to-let property, is that for most investors, they wish to sell those properties as tenanted properties. Therefore, they don't have any void periods or any difficulty with kind of giving notice to their existing tenants and upsetting what could be a fantastic existing tenant that's been in property for a long period of time. So there's a whole host of reasons why you might not want to sell it as a vacant property, but usually via a local estate agent, their main market of purchasers are homeowners that require that property to be vacant. And they might have some investors on their database, but they're usually a smaller pool of potential buyers. So it's certainly one option, but I think it's probably a limiting option for you if you're trying to sell it as a tenanted property. Another option is selling via an auction. Absolutely, lots of options kind of there. There's now a proliferation of choice. You have local auctions, national auctions, online auctions, and there is actually a service that we can provide, which I'll touch on at the end of this video, which helps you if you are looking and considering selling at auction. An auction can sometimes be a good route. It's fast, it's efficient, It attracts the right type of investors or developers if the property does require work, for example. So it is well worth a consideration. The other options that we see people looking at and considering is maybe the sell house fast route. So if you've ever kind of gone online and typed in kind of sell house fast or property buying companies or cash for your property, those sorts of topics, you'll see a lot of active buyers that are willing to purchase properties directly for cash. Now, very often the downside to that route is that those buyers pay substantially below the market value, and it might not meet your expectations in what you would hope to sell that property for. If you need a fast sale within a couple of days, absolutely it can be a solution, but there is a price to pay for that, and that's usually a reduction in what you would sell that property for. And then the final option that's well worth considering that you might not yet have come across is selling via an investment-focused agent. And they're companies that specialize in investment properties, so existing buy-to-lets, HMOs, property portfolios, student properties, professional tenants, a whole range of different properties that kind of fit that criteria. But fundamentally, they sell to investor buyers. So it's a ready-to-go market. Investors that are looking at their own criteria of maybe good quality tenant profile, location, rental yield, potential for growth, and ideally wanting to buy properties that are already tenanted. It's a perfect fit for both the buyer, the seller, and also the tenant. It allows you to sell properties with an existing tenant in place. Now, there are a couple of options around the country of investment companies that can assist you with that sale, and we're one. We help clients every day from around the world that want to sell their properties in the UK. That might be an individual unit, as we said at the beginning. They may be just changing their property portfolio in terms of locations. It could be an accidental landlord that's got a property that's been left to them, possibly in a will or in probate at some period of time. Maybe it was a property they used to live in. They've now sold it or aim to sell it, because they've moved location. So there's a whole range of reasons why you might look at selling that buy-to-let. But if you're looking at selling it as a ready-to-go property in its current condition with maybe tenants already in situ, then we can absolutely help. We have lots of relationships with other companies, auction companies, investor buyers. So there's lots of solutions there that we can kind of walk you through. So if you are looking at selling a buy-to-let, please do reach out and we'd be happy to help. And I hope that video gives you some kind of confidence that there is existing buyers in the marketplace looking for ready-to-go properties. It's a very active marketplace. It's just about trying to understand who the right type of buyers are and where the best place is to sell that buy-to-let property. Look forward to catching up with you in the next video. All the best.